It's Scott now. Okay, Matt, you're good.
Alrighty. Well, everybody, we really appreciate you guys taking some time and joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much. See ya.
Me and Joe, thought this topic was it's pretty timely for where we're at this time of the year. We all know that for a lot of us, this is our busy time of the year, but we also know that coming up and into the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter is typically when everybody kind of sees that slowdown. The problem is if we start talking about it in that third and fourth quarter, it's a little bit too late to do anything about it.
You can help them with
So
one or either of those.
what we wanted to do today is introduce this topic to you guys and give you guys some ideas about things that you could do to smooth out some of the highs and lows during your slow season and try to work on those things now.
Yeah.
So again, my name is Matt Lofton. I'm here with Joe Marconi, and most of you guys know who we are, but we are Elite Worldwide. We are a company that lives by the principles of never putting money ahead of people. And we also, what we do for the industry is we provide one-on-one coaching, management training, service advisor training, mastermind groups. If you are not familiar with who we are, please go to our website, eliteworldwide.com, and check out a little bit more about who we are and what we have to offer for you guys. And so now that we kind of got that out of the way, we'll jump into to our content for today. So again, we're going to talk about reducing some, smoothing out some of the highs and lows in our sales process and some strategies to attain consistent sales month after month. So the very first thing that we need to do, and if you've ever been a part of any type of elite event, you've heard us talk a lot about this one word in particular, but we need to set some goals. We have to know what the goal is before we can start putting a plan together to achieve that goal. So the very first thing that we would recommend, if you guys do not have very defined sales goals, sit down and back into what your sales goals need to be for the month, for the quarter, and then also, make sure you're factoring in realistic sales goals for some of your seasonality. And then the second thing that we're going to talk about today is incentivizing the right behavior to make sure that the team is pointed in the right direction and everybody's rowing in the right direction, and that they have some incentive behind achieving some of these goals that you're gonna push them after. And then we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the 300% rule, about discovered services, multi-point process. I know this is a concept that most of you guys are very familiar with. It's not new. And I get that it's not very sexy, but it also is one of those things that it's part of the fundamentals, and it just works. Every single time that we put a focus on discovered services, we see a correlation to ARO going up. We see a correlation to the customer experience being better and sales going up as well. Then we want to create an amazing customer experience. So again, think about your touch points, think about what the customer experience really is, and understand that the smallest part of the customer experience is the car being fixed. That's a general expectation. When we talk about the customer experience, we're talking about the touch points that they had on your website. What did the first phone call sound like? What did the parking lot look like when they drove in? What did the interaction with your service advisor look like when somebody walked through the door? Aesthetically, what did it look like? All of that is part of the customer experience, and not just, hey, we diagnosed your car correctly, we charged you a fair price, we fixed it in a short amount of time, and we got your vehicle back to you. That's an expectation, not part of the experience. So the next thing that we're going to spend some time talking about today is booking the next appointment. And this is a concept that myself and Joe are becoming really passionate about, because we feel like there's a huge opportunity that's lost in our industry simply because we overlook how valuable and how easy it is to schedule that next appointment. And so we're going to spend quite a bit of time today talking about that, and especially with the time of year that it is, because I'm going to make a really strong point later on about why now is the right time to do this. So we want to get the right service advisor and the right management training. So again, we talked about that customer experience.
So we got is,
by and
let's try
large,
to look at
a
the
lot of that
sound,
is driven by
featuring
who you have at the counter. And if we need some service training, if the customer experience is lacking, or the sales training is lacking, now is the right time to be looking into that. And then again, we're going to hit on it one last time. Understand the power of discovered sales and discovered services, and make sure that everybody on the team really understands that and has bought into that as part of the culture. And so, Joe, before we go on, I know you probably got something to add to
Yeah,
that.
I just want to point out two things on this slide. One of the incentivizing the right behavior. And we always think about in terms of incentivizing in terms of money, monetary. And there are other ways to motivate people. Probably the most powerful motivators out there, praise and recognition. And that's not to say that people don't deserve a certain amount of pay every week. They do. Everybody does. Shop owners, technicians, service advisors, everybody that employed by you deserves a decent wage to go home with. But that's not going to get you to where you want to get going to in terms of what your goals are set at. And you need to have an understanding of what really motivates people. And usually it's other things: praise, recognition, encouragement, making sure that you develop those good relationships with people. Because we've all heard the expression about that technician, a service advisor. He left so and so to go work somewhere else for less pay. Why? Because he wasn't happy. Toxic environments. So just be understanding of you got to develop strong relationships, really strong relationships. Sometimes an attaboy, a pat at the back, means just as much, sometimes even more than a bonus at the end of the week. And the other thing I want to point out too is like you said, you mentioned about the customer experience. We have the customer right in front of us. We got to do all we can to make sure when they leave, they turn around and say, I'm going back. I want to go back there. Because 3 to 6 months later, you may have done a great job on those brakes or the mass airflow sensor or the axle shaft. You did a great job, but they're not going to remember that. They're going to remember how they felt at the time when they left, how they feel. So when I mention relationships with your employees, you need to understand how to develop strong relationships with your customers too. The customers in front of you, that whole process from scheduling, write up, the sales process, call delivery process, and the follow-up, which we're going to talk about in this presentation today, is critical. You're talking in terms of smoothing out the highs and lows. We want the people that you spend a lot of time with developing those relationships to come back. So the customer experience has to be over the top. And it must be. One more thing about the same topic. You're not being judged just by the shop down the road, by the way. You're being judged by the entire experience that they encompass every single day, whether it's good or bad. So when they get to you sometimes on that Thursday morning, after getting beat up for 3 or 4 days by the phone company, by the bank, by the doctor's office, whatever it is, they come to you. How you treat them can make the difference. It can be a big difference in their lives. So those two things I want to point out, Matt, because it's so critical when we're talking about maintaining sales.
No, you're 100% right. And so Joe brings up a really good point there. For years and years, prior to the internet, our world was really small. It was local based, and you were going to be compared against your local competition. You're getting compared with everything now. I mean, Amazon Prime is, delivering groceries to you same day, and some other stuff is coming to you same day. So the expectation that your client has never been greater than what it is right now. So you got to really review and work on that customer experience.
Matt, I'm sorry. One more point I want to mention too. A lot of us in this virtual room spend a lot of money on advertising, marketing, Google ads, Google paid ads. Matt and I had a long discussion on this. But whether your car counts are 25 a week, 20 a week, 50 a week, 150 a week, it doesn't matter. You have those customers right in front of you. So we're so focused sometimes, or too focused on getting new people through the door, which you have to do that. Everybody loses customers for a variety of reasons. But what you have to understand is how many customers are in front of you each and every day. Whether it's 4 customers, 10 customers, 20, doesn't matter. They're in front of you. Those are your customers. Where are they going next time? Because everyone in your shop today, everyone, unless they're selling their car and getting rid of it tomorrow, will need a future repair or service. The question is, are they coming back to you? So again, I go back. This is coming full circle with this customer experience. You want them thinking about you after they leave. You want them coming up. You want your shop coming up in conversation when it's sitting around at dinner in some restaurant somewhere, where do you go? Because my check engine light is on, and you want them to mention your name. So it's very, very critical, the customer experience.
Yep, absolutely. And so, you know, the first thing that we're going to really spend some time diving into and talking about is going to be the discovered services. Again, this is probably a concept that a lot of you guys are familiar with, but it's one of those things that we take for granted after a certain amount of time. And if we don't keep a consistent focus on this metric right here, then we can lose a lot of potential. So your your discovered service is going to include the customer's request, what they brought the vehicle in for, what the service advisor recommends at the point of intake, and then what the technician discovers during the multi-point inspection. And so notice that that there's 3 phases here to the discovered services, and the one that I want to spend the most time talking about, because the customer concern is gonna happen regardless of what we do. Doesn't really involve our process. Somebody's going to come in for an oil change or the brake squeal or the check engine light. That's artificial discovered services. And then most of us have some form of a multi-point inspection that we're doing in our shop. Where I see a lot of opportunity with shops in the industry is that we lose some opportunity at the intake with the service advisor and just being prepared for that vehicle coming in. Because if I know that I have a vehicle coming in, especially if it's a pre-existing customer coming in, then I have an opportunity to preload that service with either deferred services from a previous visit or preventative maintenance mileage interval services that I can add to that RO at the point of intake. So I want to make sure that that if you do not have a portion of that in your strategy, that you take something away from this would be to go back and talk to your service advisors about how we can work that intake process a little bit better and add some discovery at the point of intake in your discovery process. So just a mathematical example of this would be the customer has a concern. They come in, let's just say they need some testing. We find $200 worth. It's $200 for our testing fee. The advisor has $300 worth of recommendations off preventative maintenance or deferred services that came in at the time of intake. And then the technician during his multi-point inspection finds $500 worth of services or repairs that need to be completed. When we add that together, obviously that gives us a total of $1,000. During this process and conversation with the customer, we're able to sell $500 of these services. That gives us a close ratio of 50%. Everything that's in the remainder, that other $500, it is a deferred service. It is not a declined service. If you guys, one of the other big benefits that a lot of people overlook when we talk about discovered services and making sure that we're following the 300% rule, it's not so much that we plan on selling this $1,000 every single time. It's the fact that I'm going to get to preload $500 worth of deferred services into my future sales. All right. So those of you that are out there that you're ballpark estimating some of these tech fines and we're not putting it into the system and we're not declining it into your shop management system and allowing it to go into your deferred services, you're missing out on a portion of what you're paying for through some of your vendors, because most of us are going to have a professional SMS program and a CRM program that's going to take a look at those deferred services and going to send out a reminder to our customer base that, hey, you have this deferred service from your last visit. Would you like to get it done? So a lot of that stuff is already built into what we're paying for. And a simple process error of not having the service advisor estimate those services and decline those services in the shop management system could cost us a couple of customer touch points throughout the year. And part of creating that good experience for them and part of our marketing strategy should just be staying in touch with them as much as we can. And deferred service recommendations is one of the ways that we do that. Joe, I know you have a ton of thoughts and opinions on this subject.
Yeah, I don't want to dominate too much, but you're right on target there. You're right on point what you said. I just want to go over and connect the dots on this declined deferred as opposed to declined. See, there are certain recommendations you're going to make that don't necessarily have to be done today, and you should make those recommendations. A good doctor will always say we have to do a follow-up. They have to come back in 3 months, in 6 months. You don't. I see something, but you don't necessarily have to take care of that today. But I do want to do a follow-up just to make sure. Dentists do it, doctors do it. They do it for a purpose. They want you to come back, but it's the best way to ensure that they're taking care of the body, the patient. Now you're taking care of, in your world, the vehicle the best you could, because you want to lower the overall costs. So years ago, I noticed that my service advisors would get really upset that the person coming in, the customer coming in, they would do the check engine light, they do the mass airflow sensor, the front brakes, but they'll hold off on that beginning of an oil leak from the valve cover, or maybe the rear struts are leaking just a little bit.
It's
So can you
Don
hold off?
Jeffy. Is Ronnie?
They'll hold off on that. And my advisors would get a little bit discouraged. So I changed that declined terminology to deferred. If you recommend it, and you truly believe that it needs to be done, maybe not today, but this is an opportunity to set up for future sales. And why this is so important here, because what are we discussing today? How to smooth out those highs and lows of your sales. If we could look at the multi-point process, identify not only what it needs today, but try to anticipate what it needs in the future. And as service advisor, you're looking at your 60Ks, 90Ks, timing belts, 120Ks, all these preventative maintenance that don't necessarily have to be done today, but you could set up for future appointments. Like Matt said, you're loading this stuff into your CRM process. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But this is a way to get people back. And the more you tell, the more you sell. So we keep on telling this, and it's not a hard sell. A good service advisor is just informing, discussing the future needs of this vehicle. Like I said earlier, unless that person is giving that car up tomorrow, they're going to need future work and services somewhere down the line. Are they coming back to you? Let's get him back to you. Let's get him back.
All great points, Joe. All very good points.
Thank you.
So we need to perform an assessment at the end of each day. Again, we talked about having sales goals. Guys, if you don't have a sales goal right now and your service advisor, if I pick up the phone and I called your service advisor at the front counter and I ask them right now, how much do you need to sell right now to know that you're doing a good job? If they don't know that number, then you've got a problem. They need to know that number. Every single professional individual out there needs to be able to know whether they're winning or losing. One of the things that Joe talked about earlier was making sure that we have a good employee experience. And we talk about this a lot at Eagles. One of the biggest reasons that people leave their job is because of lack of feedback. They had no idea whether they were doing good or bad. And one of the biggest problems that we have in our industry is we push feedback off to an annual review at some point in time, or we wait until that employee has failed us in some way, shape, or form, and then we go give them a negative review because they're not performing. But in all fairness to them, they had no idea that what they were doing was under what your expectations were. So if you don't have sales goals, make sure you have good sales goals. The other thing that I'm going to recommend to you is the sales goal is a moving target, meaning that if I have a sales goal of $4,000 a day, and that's my goal, you're not going to hit $4,000 every single day. So what do we do on the days that we don't hit 4,000? So if I know that I have a sales goal of 20,000 a week and I break that down to $4,000 a day, and I know that I have a day where we only close $2,000 worth of sales, or we only create $2,000 worth of sales, then I know tomorrow's goal needs to be 6,000. All right, because if I'm going to stay on pace, otherwise I'm selling in a deficit. Right? So if I sell $2,000 today and I sell $4,000 tomorrow, the problem is I'm in a $2,000 hole because I'm supposed to have $8,000 worth of approved sales and I only have 6. So if I continued that out, my week is going to be an $18,000 week instead of a $20,000 week. So make sure that you help your advisors understand that. Make sure that they, Make sure that you're adding the right amount to the funnel every day. And when we say a sales goal, we're talking about approved sales. This does not necessarily have to be completed work. This just means that we added $4,000 worth of approved sales to, to the bucket of work that we have to do. If we get it done today, great. If not, we've added what we're supposed to add to the bucket. And by the time, if we continue to do that every day, then what you'll see is you'll be able to continuously have your goals met. You have to discuss this with the team. Once you hit standards, if the goal that you currently have right now, if you're hitting 4,000 every single day, then that's the standard. You need to raise your goal. Your goal needs to be $6,000 a day. And then you push them, we push for that. Review the upcoming calendar, review the scheduled history. So again, we talked about having the service advisor, somebody on the team, what that might be yourself. That might be a customer support person at the front counter. But have somebody take a look at the appointments that you have on the calendar coming up for the following day. Have somebody taking a look at the pre-existing work history for those, maybe checking Carfax history if the vehicle's never been to you before, looking at those mileage intervals to see if that vehicle has any mileage services that might be due, checking your inventory to see if you have the inventory for the service that they have scheduled, making sure that you have the oil filter. If it's a specialty vehicle that you may not stock the oil for, make sure you have those things in hand. If you pre-scheduled them for a service like brakes, make sure you have the brakes or the tires or whatever's there. And then the other thing is say yes to unexpected work. And what we mean by unexpected work is make sure that you have some flex work, some flex time built into your schedule, where when that customer calls and says, I've got a noise coming from the right rear of my vehicle, I've got a, squeal every time I hit the brakes. Those are high value, high opportunity things, both for you as a business and to the customer themselves. And if you push that off to say, I'm too busy to do that today, and I'm going to get to that 2 or 3 days from now, they're going to hang up the phone and they're going to call somebody else that can get it in right now. Now, I understand that you might not be able to get the work done that day, but we need to make that's a priority to them, and we need to make it a priority to us, and we need to at least get them in the door and validate what their concern is. And then at that point in time, then we can figure out what the right schedule is for us to be able to get the work done, because we don't know what the problem is until we've got it in the door. And if we can get it in the door, then we have a pathway of success. If the car never comes in, there's no pathway to success. And so,
Matt,
Joe,
can I just add? Yeah, I want to add something. That's a really important point. And if just think about how many calls we may get on a particular day, unexpected calls, check engine light, low tire, can you put a set of wipers on, whatever it is. But there's a certain amount of calls we get each and every day. What I'm going to ask you to do is, like Matt said, look at the schedule. Because if you fill the schedule up from morning till night for the 5 days or 6 days, whatever you're open for, and there's no slots left open for this unexpected work, you're going to push those people out. I can't get to you. Oh, you're looking at next Monday. That works with the doctor or dentist. I mean, that's not going to work with you. Like Matt said, if they can't wait, they're going to call somebody else. So I'm going to ask you, just think about this. Look at your schedule. And if you're getting 1 call or 3 calls a day that you feel you should bring these people in, like Matt said, the check engine light, the noise in the rear, the clunking noise in the front, whatever it is that you can just check that vehicle out today, I'm going to ask you to think about that. Now, if someone calls today and says, can I get the car in for a 30,000 mile service tomorrow, and you can schedule that for next week, that's different. I'm not talking about that. But there are certain jobs that people have a high sensitivity of concern for. A check engine light is on. I'm going away for the weekend. I hear a rattle in the rear, whatever it is. I'm going to ask you to book, and only you know for sure how many of these type of jobs or calls you get on a weekly basis. And if that number is 2 or 3, then fit those into the schedule. Now, I'll tell you what, you're probably saying to yourself, well, what if people don't call that day? Okay. Now you got more time to dig deeper into those discovered services, to really dig deeper and improve those sales that you have already. Because how many times do the jobs you get a lot of yeses, a lot of sales made, but you feel you got to take your foot a little off the gas, which I don't want you to do, but because you just can't get them done. think about this process again with connected dots. We want to keep you busy all year long, consistent with good work, quality work too. So just think about this principle, this strategy of trying to determine how many of those calls that you're getting and which ones should you be saying yes to?
No, and that's a great point, Joe. And before we move on to the next slide, I want to tack on to what you said there, because so number one, if you don't have a process in place, and you don't have some word tracks or scripts in place for your service advisors to be able, and scheduling rules in place to be able to help them make these decisions, then you need to take some time and develop those and train those at the front counter, because they need to know when they pick up the phone if somebody has a customer concern, and that customer concern could be a safety related issue or whatever you deem is a, because we're an emergency room, right? So I know Joe said that your doctor might not take you in today. I might not take you in today for the sniffles, but if you told me that you were having, chest pain, we're going to
There you
get to you
go.
right now. Okay. So we need to have some priority levels, and make sure that we understand what we bring in right now. What do we schedule out? That's number one. And then again, Joe talked about a slow day. So you need to have a definition of what a slow day really is, and then how you're going to judge a slow day. So a slow day to me is the phone is not ringing and there's no foot traffic coming in the door. All right. If that's the case, then there's a slow day plan in place, and we're going to talk about that later. But the one point that I want to really emphasize that Joe said is that means you have a lot of time to work on, to work the process for the people that are already in the building. All right. So if you're slow and you only had one car today, and you have five employees, you have 5 employees focused on one customer. That better be the best customer experience they've ever had. Our discovered services is an average. All right. So we're doing average discovered services per vehicle. My average discovered services should be through the roof on that one. And my closing ratio should be pretty good, because I'm going to provide them a great experience. I got time to go through the sales process. We have time to be perfect. So when it's slow, that's when it's really important to train perfection in your customer experience process and some of these touch point processes that we're talking about, because the averages should be better when we're slow. What should not be better is the amount of opportunities that we have. The quantity should be down, but the quality should be better.
And one thing, Matt, before you get to the slide, shop owners in the room and managers, be careful of your mindset. All right. I talk a lot when I do a fly with the Eagles, which is in 2 weeks from now. We talk a lot about. I really emphasize that your attitude, your mindset has a direct effect on the mindset of the people around you. So if it is slow, you look at the schedule, be very, very careful. Turn it around. Instead of saying it's going to be a bad week, this is going to be a lousy week, because just by you saying that, it will turn into a bad week. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you have that slow day, or you perceive it, turn it around. Do what Matt's asking you to do. This is not slow. This is opportunity. I want you, if you're a leader, if you're the shop owner or manager, you are a leader. So I want you to be very, very careful of any negativity that you innocently communicate to your people. You have to be strong at all times. That's what a leader does. Turn it around. Believe me, because when you have this mindset and you're pushing it in a positive direction, when things start coming around, they come like an avalanche. They come like a big wave, and it's going to be a benefit to you, your people, and your customers. So just be careful of any negativity you innocently may communicate because of the situation around you. And I know it's tough. I know shop owners in particular, I understand what you go through each and every day. I was a shop owner for 41 years. I know how difficult it is. What you guys do on a daily basis, nothing short of a miracle. It's why I coach today. It's why I want to give back and help others, because I know what it is. But just be careful. Just be careful. Always be positive. I'll get off my soapbox now, Matt.
No. That's a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up. We've talked about this before. Service advisors are salespeople, and salespeople thrive on a positive environment. If any shred of negativity is going to bring them down a little bit. So just like Joe said, make sure that you're really paying attention to to the vibe that you're adding to the business, to the, to the attitude, the vocabulary that we're using, and make sure that you don't build in excuses, right? We all have those times a year that we know are going to be slow. Hey, the state fair is coming into town next week. Oh, it's going to be slow. Or it's end of school time and everybody's going to be on vacation. These are self-fulfilling prophecies. And my thing is the state fair comes into town every single year at the same time. School ends at the same year every time. We know when these things are going to happen. So why don't we plan now to do something about it so next year it's not slow? So when you start changing your mindset a little bit there, you understand that these things are within your control to affect. I'm not saying that you can turn your slowest day of the year historically for the last 5 years into your best day. I'm saying you can make it better.
Better. You can make it better. That's the point. You can always make it better. That's right.
And so this is I love visuals, especially when I'm either working with clients or working with team members, because this really hits at home. And this was a graph. This is a real sales graph that we have for a client here at Elite. And what you're going to see here is you're going to see these highs and lows, and these are by week. So what you're going to see is you have these peaks right here. So you had a big low, and during this there's some, I call it service advisor panic. We say yes, 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 because we're slow, we sell, 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 sell. So we got a lot of work in, we got a lot of yeses. During this time, we're like, oh God, I don't know how we're ever going to get this done. The parking lot's over full, the phone's ringing off the hook, and then they get scared. Somewhere about right here, they start getting scared, and we start taking our foot off the gas, like we talked about in the last slide. So we stop paying attention to approved sales. We stop paying attention to our daily sales targets and our daily car count goals, and we start emotionally taking our foot off the gas. And then you're going to see after this big deal, we celebrate it, and then next week there's nothing left in the funnel, and the sales drop. And then all of a sudden we start selling again. And then we take our foot off, and then we sell again, and then we take our foot off. And you can see that it's a very repeatable pattern. Every time we have a high, a pretty big high, we have a pretty drastic drop off the week before and the week after, and then we typically take a week or two to build back up again. And the reason that happens is because we're not taking a look at a week from now. We're not taking a look at what's going to be there after we close out all these approved sales that we got approved today and last week and the week before. We have to make sure that we're adding to our sales bucket every single day, and that we fill this out, and that we're also adding, we're following a strategy of what to do with all these sales that we did get in these peaks. Because if we're doing our job and we're scheduling these things out for the next service, it's going to take time, about 6 months to a year. What you're going to find is after a year, you're going to have less of these valleys. There's always going to be highs and lows. But what we want to do is we want to bring this valley up to here, and we want to bring this valley up to here, and we want to bring this valley up to here. And when we can smooth that out some, then it's really hard to say that we're going to turn every day, that we're going to take this day and we're going to jump it way up here to here. But it's a hell of a lot easier to take a day that's a third of what your normal good day, what your great day is, and make it a mediocre day, right? So raise the floor. Sometimes raising the floor is a little bit easier than trying to raise the ceiling. And that's making sure that you have predictable car count through scheduling the next appointment, making sure that you have deferred service conversations. So when we do have low car count, when those cars come in, that we're maximizing our opportunities that we have in front of us today. Making sure that we have a slow day plan in place, so we're reaching out to customers about deferred services in the past. Making sure that we have a lost customer retention plan. So hey, this person hasn't been to us in 18 months, and it's not looking so good today, right? I'm looking at my schedule next week, and I'm looking at my schedule next week from right here, and I'm saying there's nothing on the schedule for this week for whatever reason. We need to start doing something about that this week, because they're not just going to magically show up next week if we don't do anything. So I would say if you guys have the ability in your shop management system to take a look at your sales like this over time by week, and you can get some sort of a graph layout like this, I think a lot of you are going to be surprised with what that looks like, and you're going to see that a lot of our sales look kind of like this. And again, this is really pay attention when it's, when it's going good. Don't take your foot off the gas. Try to stay at the front counter with those guys. Help them look ahead. Don't let them get that false sense of security that we just had our best week ever and it's just going to be like this from now on, because you're going to set them up for that big dip the next week after.
Yeah.
Joe, what do you?
Yeah, I think it's important that, when you sort of like, and you made a great analogy, instead of trying to raise the peaks, let's raise the roof, let's raise the floor. That's a great analogy. I love that. So I'm gonna steal that too, Matt. But if we look at this graph, and this is a real life graph, this is an actual customer's graph. They use, I believe, Techmetric, right, Matt?
Yep.
Techmetric, and they produced this graph. When you look at this, you can actually see that if you average out, it's somewhere in the middle, which is their potential is 60 grand or plus, but the actual potential is around maybe 40. If I'm looking at this, I'm trying to average out the numbers, maybe even less, 38,000 to 40,000. So the potential is there to do it. So we want to make sure, because what's happening too is you're not just having those peaks and the valleys are what you got to be careful with, but you're also hurting your cash flow. And when
Yeah.
when you damage the ability to make payroll or pay your bills, then that's not a good indication. So let's try to be proactive. I think we're going to talk more about it next slide, but ways to be proactive about looking at the schedule. If you sit on your hands and you just say, woe is me, it's going to be slow next week, I guarantee you it will be slow next week. It will be.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Absolutely.
And I want to just say one thing that Matt said earlier. We're not looking for perfection here. I don't think that this is not going to be a solid bar graph right across. It never will be. But if we can get the valleys moved up a little bit, you're going to raise your overall average. And that's going to help with cash flow, sales, and profits. Everybody's going to be a lot happier.
Yeah, absolutely. 110%. So how do we raise that floor? How do we fix that problem that we just saw on the graph? And so the biggest thing that I can tell you guys is be proactive at looking at your calendar. I can't tell you how many clients that we work with, and I go take a look at their appointment scheduler, and we're paying between $300 and $700 a month for these shop management systems that do all of this stuff. And I go look at their calendar, and there's nothing on next week's calendar. Absolutely nothing. They got today and maybe something on there for tomorrow, and maybe one or two things for the day after. But again, so make sure you're using the tools that you're already paying for. Use the schedule, put everything on the schedule that you can. You guys come up with some internal communications for, yeah, you can see in our little example here, there's blue and yellow and red. Come up with what your color coding options are for your shop. What does that stuff mean? So when you're taking a look at it, you can quickly identify what's a waiter, what's a pre-scheduled appointment. Let's figure out what we have next week. You should be looking at tomorrow's schedule every single day. So I want you to pick one day a week, usually at the beginning of the week, and look at next week's schedule. So my personal preference is I'm going to look at next week's schedule every Monday, because that gives me 4 days of action to be able to do something about next week's schedule. If I wait till Friday to look at next week's schedule, I only have 8 hours to do something about it. And that might not be enough. So I want you to look ahead, but you need to look at tomorrow's appointments every single day and look at what you have coming in and understand that the schedule is not written in stone. Okay? Just like we talk about the labor guide not being the Bible, the schedule is not written in stone either. It is dynamic. You can pick up the phone and call somebody and say, "Hey, Joe, I know we had you pre-scheduled for an oil change tomorrow. Unfortunately, we had an emergency situation with another client and they have a time-bound safety related issue that we need to get taken care of." If you need, I'm not telling you should be doing that every day, but if you have to do that, you have the ability to do it. So make sure that just understand and make sure your service advisors understand you control the schedule. Okay. You don't have to just take what comes in. It doesn't have to be first come, first serve. One of my favorite analogies that I like to talk to with service advisors is if we were at a nice restaurant and we walked up, we were walked up from the street, they usually have a hostess stand on the outside, and that we're going to ask the hostess how long the wait is. And the hostess looks at us and it's a table of two. And I can look through the door and I can see a six-top table sitting there. And the hostess says, "Well, we're about 3 hours We have about a 3-hour wait right now. Well, they could seat that party of two at a six top table if they wanted to, but they understand the lost potential in sales that they're going to have if they seat the wrong person at that table. Because what happens if a party of six walks up right behind it and wants to eat? That's obviously better opportunity for the restaurant. Where I'm going with that is take a look at what you have on the schedule. Again, create some scheduling rules for your team. Understand what your vehicle avatar is, and try not to load your schedule with a bunch of first come first serve, things that are outside of your ability to create opportunity. If we've scheduled a bunch of 2025 vehicles on the schedule for today, or a bunch of state inspections, just because they were first come first serve, you're going to kill your opportunity for discovered services. And if we don't have discovered services, there's no way we can have sales. So, take a look at that appointments, see what you have. Like Joe said, leave some open slots on there for emergency type situations. We get those calls every single day. And if you think you're not getting them, you are getting them. You might just be mishandling those opportunities and pushing them out. But almost every single day, you're getting a phone call about some sort of emergent situation. So leave an opportunity open to take those. Know what your technician labor inventory is. All right. If you have 4 technicians and they're there for 40 hours a week, you have 160 hours of available labor to sell. All right. And so if you only schedule 80 hours, then it is what it is. You have no pathway to be productive there. So, know what your available labor inventory is. Make sure your service advisors know what the available labor inventory is. It's not just enough for you as the business owner to know what these numbers are and these KPIs. You have to teach this to the front counter so they understand their impact on everything. They have to know what their impact here is. They have to know how many labor inventory. They have to understand that. They have to know what they have to sell per ticket. We need to understand each technician's potential, because just because little Johnny's there for 40 hours, if he has 1 year of experience in the industry, we can't expect him to be able to perform 40 hours worth of work doing oil changes and state inspections. That's not fair to him. So we need to we need to know what our actual ability to sell inventory is as well. So we might have 160 available, but we might only be able to do 120, right? So know your team, know what their capabilities are. And that doesn't just mean settle on what their past standard is. What is their actual real potential? Because productivity is a habit. And if you have a habit of low productivity, then it's comfortable for everybody to do 20, 30 hours. But you might have a technician that's more than capable of doing 40 to 50. We've just allowed that comfortability to kick in, and now they're just comfortable doing 20 or 30. So understand what their potential is, not necessarily what their current, standard is, but what their potential is. And if you know you've got a guy there that's got the potential to do 40 or 50, let's start scheduling him with the ability to do 40 and 50. And then book repeatable and predictable work. So those of you that are out there doing heavy driveline work, that are doing a ton of, check engine light diagnostic stuff, heavy diagnostic work like electrical network testing, nothing in the world wrong with that stuff. There's nobody that enjoys playing with oscilloscopes and diagnosing cars more than I do. I love it. Okay. I will also tell you that our number one priority when we started a business was to be profitable so we could continue to stay in business. All right. And I will tell you that work is very, very difficult to depend on from a profitability standpoint. What is repeatable and what is predictable is routine services that are going to need to be done, and then pre-scheduled services off of your discovery. So if I book your appointment today for the breaks that we looked at, today, and I book you out 3 months from now because I know you're going to need breaks, and I get you to schedule back in, that is predictable work. I may not have collected the dollars today, but I put it in motion to know that I've got a predictable schedule coming up. All right. So, preventative maintenance plans they're predictable. I know what the mileage intervals are going to be. I can schedule that out routinely. I can schedule it out as far as I want to. I know some people that go all the way out and pre-schedule their 30, 60, 90s to their customers right then and there, and it might be 2 years down the road on the schedule, right? So these things are very predictable. And remember, we don't necessarily need, when we talk about driving car count, we don't necessarily need more customers. We need the customers to come back in more often.
Yeah.
Right? Because the more often they come in, the better we can develop a relationship with them, the more rapport we get to build with them, the more they know, like, and trust us, which means the easier it is to get them to say yes. Every time you do new customer acquisition marketing, you're bringing in somebody that just fired somebody else. They're coming to you because the last place they had a bad experience with, or they're looking for a transactional offer. You provided them with an offer that's too good to pass up, and they're coming to you solely for that offer. Therefore, it's a lot harder to sell off of that customer. Not saying don't do that. I'm just saying it would be ideal to get Joe back in 4 times than it would be to try to get 4 more Joes. All right. So, because by the 4th time Joe comes in, we've developed some trust with each other, and the likelihood is that, you know, he's going to be my customer for life after that. So really take a look at the repeatable services, the predictable services, look at your customer experience, what processes you have. Do you have processes in place that are allowing that to add to your schedule? And try to see what you can put together that adds as much pre-scheduled work on your calendar as possible, because that's what's going to smooth this out. And then again, just like we talked about the very first there with the restaurant analogy, understand your customer avatar and your preferred profile vehicles. This is very important. Do not overcomplicate this. I talk to a lot of people that really overcomplicate this. The bottom line is this: you know what type of cars you guys work on, you know, that you're efficient with. You know what your tooling is set up to work on. You know what your technicians' capabilities are. If you don't have a diesel technician and everybody there is scared to work on diesels, and we don't do this type of work on this and we don't do that type of work, and
Yeah.
then why the hell are we going to schedule 5 diesel trucks to come in? There's no point in it. So same concept with Euros and things like that. Make sure you understand who your customer avatar is, and then make sure you have a plan of everybody can identify who your ideal customer is, and everybody can identify what your ideal vehicle is. And then when they come into your store, you cannot lose them. You got to win them. I mean, you gotta grab a hold of them for dear life, and you've got to do everything that you can possibly do to create a plan that gets them to come back in 3 or 4 more times.
Yeah.
And so we talked about, you know, we talked about this in the beginning. A lot of us have a CRM program or customer retention marketing, but customer retention marketing is not just your CRM platform. All right. You need to have a CRM program in place that involves your service advisor, your technicians, and you yourself as the owner or the manager of the shop. There needs to be some form of an internal customer retention plan that you have in place. And, you know, and you're working that plan on a day-to-day basis, and you're not just abdicating that to your CRM program. Because a lot of us like to do, oh yeah, I got CRM. We send out text messages, and, you know, I send out a postcard every, after 30 days. All that stuff is great. And I'm not saying don't do that. And I'm not saying don't rely on those services. They're wonderful, but you need to go beyond that. That's the bare minimum. You know, so you need to create a preventative maintenance program. You need to present it to every customer. Consistency of process is where this comes into play, and where this practice winds up having, you know, real fruit at the end of it. Because these things are things that are not going to make as big of a difference today, but when we talk about looking 6 months ahead, I told you we were gonna talk about in the beginning about the fourth quarter. If I set my intervals up right now at 6 months from now, and I'm scheduling next appointments for everything, 6 months from now is the middle of December, right? We all know 6 months from today, we're going to be thinking about 2 weeks from now, and it's going to be completely slow, and it's going to be dead, and nobody has any money, and car count's always low, and weather is always bad. All of these things are, you know, are things that we deal with in those winter months. So, but if I start scheduling right now for my next appointment, and I start booking out in December right now, then when I get to December, I'm going to have more opportunity to not be slow. I'm going to have more car count available, and I didn't spend a dime to do it. I just put a little bit of effort into it. So create a top of mind marketing plan. Again, 30, 60, 90-day text messages, emails, use your CRM programs, do customer care follow-ups, whether that's through text messages or phone calls. Implement a CRM service reminder process. If you have a CRM program and it does that for you automatically, great. Just check into it every now and again and make sure it's set up the right way. Make sure the intervals are correct. Me and Joe are big believers in this next bullet point here. And I'm going to give you the business reason that you should do it. I'm going to give you the technician reason that you should do it. And I'm going to give you the value to the customer. You should offer a pit stop program.
Yeah.
And the pit stop program is going to be, so every oil change that you do, the point of the oil change or the end of it would be to schedule 2 next appointments. So the pit stop is going to be at the halfway point. So the example that we're going to give you here is if your oil change interval is 6 months from now, I want to get you in at the 90-day mark. And we're just going to do a quick, not a full point, not a full multi-point, because I just had you in, just a quick check over of the fluids and a quick safety and maintenance check on the vehicle. The reason for that is twofold. Number one, the technical reason that you want to do this and the benefit that it has to the customer. The vehicles that we have today are running high compression engines with low drag piston rings. If you read your owner's manual and most vehicles from 2012 on, it's going to tell you between oil changes, you have to add 1 to 3 quarts of oil. That is a normal amount of oil consumption. All right. And anybody that's ever owned a Volkswagen TDI can tell you it's more like 5 to 7 quarts of oil. And so,
Yeah.
so number one, your customer is not doing that. If you started checking the dipstick on before changing the oil on every oil change service that came into your shop today, your technicians are going to note that the dipstick is low on about 50% of the vehicles that come in. All right. So if we know that coming into it, we know that low oil is a killer. Oil starvation is what kills the top end of the engine. That's where we have valve spring issues, lifter issues, cam lobe issues. That's where we get this extra carbon buildup from. So we're engineering problems into vehicles because of the extended oil change intervals and because of the way that we have engineered the engine itself. Run the pit stop program, add the quart of oil to your customer's car. It's the right thing to do. It's going to prevent long-term failure. That's the benefit to them, technically speaking. The other benefit to them is 6 months is a really daggum long time. And the ball joints with the boot that was busted that didn't have any play in it today, well, 3 months from now, that thing could have some play in it and it could be a safety concern and it could be causing tire wear. And now we could be causing 2 problems instead of 1 problem. So if we can get the vehicle back in and we can identify that, yes, that ball joint that we had, that we recommended the last time that had the boot that was busted, we check it really quick. There is play in it. We can get that fixed and repaired before we introduce premature wear into the tires. So now we've saved a customer, potentially $600 on a set of tires, along with the needed repair that they were going to spend anyways on the ball joint or control arm. So the selfish reason that you want to do it is, again, you're going to add consistent car count. It's another customer touch point, and you're getting discovery work, right? So again, everything is built off of discovery. We're going to find discovery every single time the car comes in. The other thing is the more it comes in, the more condensed that discovery is, the easier it is to get the yes out of it. So if you don't have a pit stop program, if you're unfamiliar with that, please reach out either to your coach. If you are here with Elite, reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to kind of talk you through what that concept is. But I strongly recommend that. It works wonders with our clients that have implemented it, and it makes a really big difference in smoothing out that car count throughout the year and giving you some predictable services that are going to be coming in the door.
Yeah.
The next thing that I would tell you is create a reinspection service. So the reinspection service, again, a lot of us are doing 24-month, 24,000 mile warranties, 36. Some of us are doing 5-year, 50,000 mile warranties, right? So if you sell a repair today, or if you did a heavy driveline service and you just put an engine in or a transmission in or a rack and pinion or anything, schedule something for 30 days out, 2 weeks out, whatever interval you want to look at there, but schedule a reinspection service. Number one, we're going to reduce some liability that we might have in a larger repair. So let's think about a push connect fitting on a transmission cooler line, right? That's got the little clip that goes over top of it. The technician pushes the line in but doesn't put the moon clip on. and that thing will ride as long as they're nice and smooth with it. It might ride there for a while. It's going to make it through our test drive before it leaves QC, but it's probably not going to last 6 months. But we check it at the 30-day mark. We can see a leak there. We can fix that before they have damage, to an expensive component that either we're going to have to replace, or, we're going to lose. It's going to prevent a problem. Again, the other thing is, let's just say 90% of the time, 99% of the time, everything's going to be perfectly fine. We check over our previous work. Everything is great. And now we have an opportunity for more discovery. The vehicle's going to be in the air. We have an opportunity for discovery. And so, and again, if you've done, if you do have a component, let's just take any rear shocks. You got a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty on rear shocks. Schedule them for the 18-month mark and do a warranty inspection. So, hey, I know this thing's going to go out of warranty in the next 6 months. I want to get it in 6 months before it goes out of warranty, because I want to have the opportunity to take advantage of my labor claim, to take advantage of my, my vendor warranty that they have. Again, the likelihood is we're probably not going to wind up warrantying that part out. But what we are going to do is we're going to get another opportunity for discovery. We're going to get one more touch point with the customer. And if it is indeed out of warranty, what type of a customer experience is that for you to proactively get them to come in without them knowing that they had a problem and replace a component at no charge to them that they didn't even request that you replace? I mean, that's a wow moment. You just won that trust over from them for life. So if you don't have something like that in place, think about that. Again, we're trying to think about how could I take the 10 cars that I have today and turn that into 20 or 30 visits on my calendar down the road, and come up with valid reasons for how to do that. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, let me just bring up one point here, reinspection services. Years back when I was doing AC recharges a lot, compressors, condensers, evaporators, I noticed that a lot of them came back. If you did the job in May, it came back in August, September, because something else was leaking, or a simple recharge in May, and now it's out of refrigerant in August. So I started saying, and a lot of times we're doing work on the warranty or recharging the car again on our dime. So what I did was I started this process of reinspection. I started with the air conditioning work. Every air conditioner recharge or air conditioning work needed at least 2 to 3, depending upon what time of the year it was, 2 to 3 re-inspections. What that did is eliminated all this extra warranty work, because the customer knew up front that we fixed a leak or we recharged it. But if it's low, you probably have a leak. So we have to keep monitoring it. So when we do have that customer come back 2 months later for the air conditioning, and we do spot that it's a little low in refrigerant, and we put dye in the system, then we could move that from a position of warranty to another opportunity. And the customer understands too. So you're doing the right thing for yourself, for the customer, for the technician. It's just a win-win-win all the way around. Think about reinspection and how it applies to your particular business model. Try to implement it. It does work.
Absolutely. That's great points, Joe. And then implement a We Miss You campaign. Again, there's a lot of CRM programs out there that have a We Miss You campaign or a lost customer retention program. If your CRM program does not have that, then you can do this manually by looking in your shop management system, your customer database. And what you're going to do there is you're going to look for customers that have not been to you in 14 months or more. All right. So we're going to pull those customers out, and you're either going to manually mail them something, a We Miss You card. Handwritten cards work great for this type of stuff with some sort of a coupon, something in there, some sort of an offer to get them to come back in. But again, there's sometimes we lose customers just out of convenience. Sometimes there was one bad experience that we didn't know it was a bad experience, and they wanted to try somebody else to see if they would get a better experience elsewhere. But they forget about us after a while. After 2 or 3 times, they forget about us. And then we reach out to them and they're like, oh yeah, those guys, as a matter of fact, they were better. Now that I think about it, I hadn't really been happy with the people that I've been going to. So reach out, make sure Make sure that you have a We Miss You campaign. We want to try to win back every single lost customer that we can that's an avatar customer. And that's the key there, is make sure you understand who your avatar customer is and make sure that we're driving those customers back in the door. And then, like we talked about in the beginning, make sure you're incentivizing your employees. And like Joe said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a pay plan incentivization. Sometimes it's just going to be just the recognition, making sure that they understand what those goals are. They understand what the game plan is. If they know what the game that we're playing is, and they understand that the game is discovered services, a great customer experience, and then scheduling is, trying to pack the schedule as advantageously as we can. If they know what that game is, and we consistently provide them with some good feedback, then it's going to incentivize them to do that. So, and then there's also, there is some monetization that you can put out there. I'm a big believer in gamification when it comes to this type of stuff. Try to find a way to make it fun, but it doesn't have to be these, $10,000 bonuses or anything like that. Just something to keep these things top of mind, because especially as we get busy, it's really, really easy to let our process slide. And that's what we saw in that chart, was as we got busy, really what happened is the process failed, right? The process started to fail. We stopped scheduling the next appointment. We stopped inspecting vehicles as much as we did when we were slower. We stopped having good customer conversations. We stopped talking about preventative maintenance services. We stopped doing all those things. And that's when you saw the dip the next week. Whereas if we continue to make sure that we're consistent with those things every single time, no matter how busy we are, then we can flatten. That's how we flatten that deal out. So, but make sure that they see the incentives for doing that, and that they understand the incentives for doing that. And so the biggest thing that we want to leave you guys with today is, as for the future, your task is not to foresee it, but to enable it. Like we talked about earlier, I hear so often that, well, I just don't understand. Every single year, February is always a terrible month. January is always a terrible month. September is always slow. If that sounds like you, if you're one of those people, and I'm not saying that there might not be a good reason for that it might not be, that I'm not saying that you're lying. What I'm saying is that you're allowing it to happen to some degree. So let's put a plan together right now. When you get off the call, think about what your seasonality slow times are. And if it's not something like, well, everybody in my town leaves at this particular time and I just lose half of my customer base, for some of you, that is what it is, right? But for most of us, that's not what it is. Seasonality slowness is going to be either times of year that your customer base has a lack of disposable income. You have the same number of customers in December that you do in March. They just have less disposable income because they know they're getting ready to spend a lot of money on Christmas, right? You have the same amount of customers in June that you did in March, April, and May. You have less disposable income because they're getting ready to go on summer vacation, and they're getting ready to, September, same thing. They're going back to school shopping. That should not affect my car count. My car count should stay the same as long as I've pre-scheduled appropriately, right? And as long as I've done things, as long as I've planted the right seeds the times before, and we take control of those opportunities, then we can pre-schedule for when we know that we're going to be slow. We can get ahead of that, and we can have an opportunity to smooth out that floor. I may not be able to make September my best month ever, but I know I can take it from this as my worst month to maybe this is my worst month and make it pretty close to what my average month is. And that's the goal here, guys, is just to try to smooth out these sales as best as possible. Focus on what matters the most, which is making sure that we can get repeatable car count, not necessarily more car count, but consistent repeatable car count. And then making sure that our discovery process is consistent, and our next, and that we have a strategy to get those customers to come back in over and over and over again.
Nice. We should open up for questions, Matt, I think.
Yeah. If there's any of you guys out there that have any questions,
Any
I'd be
questions?
happy. Can feel free to put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself and ask.
Sure. I know we're over the hours, so I don't want to, overstay our welcome here, but any questions, please. right, well, before you sum up, let me just say thank you to everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names on this webinar, this Facebook webinar. I just want to thank you for allowing us to help you, and I hope that you find the information valuable. A lot of it's routine, a lot of it's you probably know already, but sometimes you need a little bit of, kick in the butt to make it realize that this stuff is important. And no matter how well you're doing, you can always do better. So just make sure that take the information and put it to good use. And thank you. Just thank you for allowing us to be in your virtual room today. Okay, Matt, sum it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like Joe said, we really want to thank you guys for taking your time and spending with us today. I do want you guys to know that if you're out there, if you're not a member of Elite and you feel like you resonated with some of the topics that we talked about today, please reach out to us. We have a program that would fit everybody that would be in this room, whether you're a one-man operation doing $100,000 a year or you have 10 locations doing 500 million. Elite has a program and an opportunity to help you take your operation to the next level and really help you build the business and design the business that you want for you. If that sounds like it, either reach out to either me or Joe through our email here, or you can text this number right here, 253-655-7053, and reach out to us. You can either text that number, or you can call it, and we'd be happy to schedule some time and see how we can best help you out. But if you're worried about price point as far as what that's going to be, if you're in that range, don't worry about it. We have a program that would be affordable for anybody. And then we also, if you're already a top performer and you're looking to go to the next level, we have programs for you as well that would fit for you guys. But we really want to appreciate you taking the time, out of your day, out of your week to come spend with us.
Yes.
We know how
Yes.
much your time, we know how valuable your time is and how difficult it is to pull yourself out of that shop for an hour or so. So we appreciate you taking that time and spending with us. And we wish you all the success in your bays and in your shop. And again, if there's anything that we can do to help you out, please let us know.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And no obligation. You want to speak to us or text that number, no obligation. Let's just talk. Like Matt said, we could fit your needs easily. So thank you again. Means a lot. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting and have a great day, everybody.